Hello, everyone. My name is Nellie Northup, and I am a Nova Scotia Work School Liaison who currently works with high school youth grades 9 to 12. I am a career development practitioner and am pleased to share some really important information with you today. This program is typically an interactive in-person session taking place over 2 hours. Unfortunately, we cannot be together during these unprecedented times, but we still wanted to provide this useful information for all those interested in learning more about getting started with career decision making. With that being said, welcome to the fourth and final session of Let's Talk Careers, Filling Your Toolbox. If you have attended the other sessions, you would have already learned about mentoring youth through decision making, getting to know youth, and tomorrow's labor market and career explorations. Today, we are going to chat about skill building for the future. As you can see, this wheel shows the content of the sections in a little more depth. We are now in the Take Action section, where we discuss how to gain and identify skills, and then how to use those skills practically for the job force or post-secondary planning. So, we know youth need skills to enter the workforce, but how do they build these skills, and what specific skills are needed? In a skills economy, youth are likely to spend their foreseeable future identifying, understanding, building on, speaking about, and demonstrating their skills and abilities, while addressing barriers in doing so. This, of course, is a lifelong process that they will just be starting now. As we are discussing skill building, I would like you to think about what skills you think are necessary and if they have changed since you were in high school. Do you think youth should focus on job-specific skills or more general soft skills such as time management and communication? Or perhaps you think both are necessary. With that in mind, I think it is important to discuss hard skills versus soft skills. This distinction will not only help you as a mentor, but will also be able to put some things into perspective for your youth. Hard skills include the specific knowledge and abilities required to be successful in a job. This would be things like basic computer skills, knowing how to speak a foreign language, or having a diploma or certification. They are much more easily measured and defined than soft skills and are teachable abilities. Soft skills, also sometimes referred to as employability skills, characterize your relationships with other people or are about how you approach life and work. They are personal driven and subjective skills, and because of this are difficult to measure. Soft skills include skills like decision-making skills, creativity, adaptability, and customer service skills. As you are probably thinking, both are really important. What we are hearing from employers, though, is that they often will care more about someone having the soft skills because they can teach them the hard skills for the job. Soft skills are a bit harder to teach, and most employers expect that their candidates have them prior to applying. Imagine this scenario. Two people apply for a job within carpentry. The first has a diploma in carpentry and 3 years experience, and the second is a recent high school graduate with little carpentry experience, but a positive attitude and a willingness to learn. On paper, the first candidate has all the qualifications necessary, but they show up late for their interview, they wouldn't look the employer in the eye, and they weren't very friendly throughout the entire process. The second candidate, however, showed up early, shook hands with the employer, and looked them directly in the eye. They were upfront about not having much experience, but expressed an eagerness and excitement to learn the trade. The second candidate got the job. It is much easier to work with someone who has positive soft skills without the hard skills than a person with all the hard skills and no soft skills. This is not to say that hard skills are not important. They certainly are. However, just as much, if not more energy should be focused on obtaining soft skills. Everyone needs to start somewhere, and a youth is more likely to have someone take a chance on them if they are able to demonstrate that they have soft skills. That way, they will be given opportunities to learn those more technical skills along the way. With the importance of both hard skills and soft skills, the Department of Education has identified 6 competencies that are key for today's youth to be successful. The first is communication, or the ability to promote themselves and their ideas. Second is citizenship. They are concerned about how actions affect others. And then we have personal and career development. They need to be adaptable and comfortable with change. Next, we have creativity and innovation. They're not afraid to fail and are able to access information easily. Technology fluency. They're comfortable learning and using new technologies. And last but not least, critical thinking. They aren't satisfied with just the status quo, and they are willing to ask questions. As you can see, there is a good mix of hard and soft skills, but they primarily fall within the soft skills category. It is paramount that yourself and your youth understands that they don't need the fanciest piece of education to be successful. If they can hone in on practicing these skills, they are far more likely to be given chances to be successful. The truth is, technologies change, education materials change, but soft skills will always be important. If they have these down, they will become future-proof and ready for anything the changing workforce throws at them. So, how can they build these skills? There is a laundry list of opportunities available to students to help them foster these skills, both hard and soft. They can look at doing a co-op or internship. They could have a summer or part-time job. When I look back at all the jobs I've had over the years, I truly feel I learned the most about myself and my skill set at my job at Canadian Tire in high school. They can volunteer. This is an amazing opportunity to get yourself out of your comfort zone and learn something new. They may even discover a passion for something they've never considered. Not to mention, this is a wonderful thing to put on a resume, and employers still very much value volunteer time, particularly those youth who don't have much work experience. Extracurricular activities can be things like sports or yearbook club, band, etc. All of these activities help to practice a lot of these important soft skills. Apprenticeship is a wonderful opportunity where someone interested in a skilled trade can shadow a journey person to become certified themselves. This path offers amazing hands-on learning from someone in the field, as well as a real-life look at what that profession involves. There are many high school programs available, such as O2, CEP, and Career Access. If you are unsure about the ins and outs of these programs and if your school offers them, I would encourage you to reach out to your school counselor for more information. Mentorship is also a wonderful option. Perhaps your student has an idea of what career they want to pursue, and you are able to connect them with someone in the industry who can mentor them on their path. This is just one example of mentorship, as it can take many forms. The next one is entrepreneurship. When I say entrepreneurship, I'm not saying you need to come up with a fancy company idea, although that's okay too. I'm talking more about the basics, mowing lawns or shoveling driveways for your neighbors. Maybe you help with gardening. Maybe you know an elderly person who needs some help cleaning out their garage. All of these would be wonderful examples of entrepreneurship and not only help develop some of these essential skills, but also look really great on a resume. And last but not least, portfolios. Portfolios provide a tangible and visual representation of a youth's career development process that can support youth well into their adult years. So portfolios can be used to document and demonstrate a variety of things. As you can see, resumes and cover letters, transcripts, reflections, creative work, recommendations, media or published articles, online content or websites, and references, among other things. Obviously, starting out, youth wouldn't have all of these things to contribute to a portfolio, and that's okay. This is a lifelong process where they can continue to add new items. It's also just a wonderful way to keep track of what you have done. I'm sure many of you, like myself, have been updating my resume and thinking, when did I take that course? And it took way more investigative work than it should have because I just unfortunately did a poor job at keeping records. Also, an important note on the online content or websites piece. When I say that, I'm referring to certain industries where a personal website may be required. Sometimes this can be a great way to showcase your work, particularly on the creative side. But this brings up an important note about social media. Social media is one of the easiest, cheapest, and fastest ways for employers to screen applicants. So I highly recommend for all youth to go through their social media accounts, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, and delete anything they wouldn't want a future boss to see. And you should go back far as well, not just recent posts. You want to have a consistent job brand when applying for jobs. And if your resume indicates that you work well in a team, but you are found on a Facebook post saying something rude about another individual, those things don't quite line up and will likely cost you the job. So, what do you need to apply for a job? The first place to start is a resume. There are lots of opinions out there about what makes a good resume, but I think it's important that we first go back to the basics and discuss what a resume is and why it's important. Remember, your youth likely has never created one and may have lots of questions about the process. So what is a resume? A resume is a 1 to 2 page document summarizing your work and volunteer experience, education, and skills. They should be accurate and easy to read, so no lying or stretching the truth. The resume should be written with both you and the prospective employer in mind. So what I mean by this is, of course, the youth applying will be thinking what they want out of the job, and that's natural. But it's important to write a resume with the employer's desire in the forefront of their mind. They will be the one choosing to hire you or not. And the purpose of a resume is to get you an interview. Why are resumes important? Resumes are a marketing tool. Think of yourself as the product you are marketing. They are a compact way to demonstrate a lot of wonderful things about you, all on a couple of pages. They outline the link between you and the job. This goes back to what I was referring to earlier. The employer has a list of things that they want for the job, which will most likely be listed on the job posting. The resume is an opportunity for the youth applying to demonstrate why they are a good fit for the job. Okay, so some resume tips. Your name should be the biggest thing on the page. You want them to remember who is applying. It's important that youth use a professional email account. A good basic is just first name, last name at gmail.com. Some of those combinations might not be available, so if that's not the case, it could be last name, first name at gmail.com. Or perhaps Gmail isn't available, so maybe you try Hotmail or Yahoo. All of those are fine. All youth have a GNESPES account, and while that certainly isn't inappropriate, it is rather confusing as it is just an assortment of letters and numbers. And this, of course, would be their school account. Because of this, it's a bit difficult for the employer to read or retype, and it will also be hard for them to find in their inbox. It may even go to their junk folder. For all of these reasons, it's best to stick with a simple email with just your name. It's easy for you to remember, and it's easy for the employer to remember. When starting your resume, focus on creating a list of the top reasons you should be hired for a specific job. Update your resume often. It will be much easier to keep track of things. Plus, you never know when an opportunity could come up, and you want to be prepared. There should be no spelling or grammar mistakes. Everything else on your resume could be perfect, but perhaps they're trying to decide between you and one other person, and you're the one with the spelling error. Unfortunately, you're not going to get the job over the other person because of that. And select a basic font such as Times New Roman or Arial. There are, of course, other ones, but just stick to the basics. They're much easier to read. Arrange your categories in a way that makes sense, such as personal profile, qualifications and highlights, experience, education and training. Choose your words carefully and be professional. Save as a Word document, but send it to the employer as a PDF. This way, you know the formatting will not be altered when they open it on their end. Of course, there are some exceptions to this rule. If you're applying directly from a job ad and it specifically indicates that they want it sent as a Word document, by all means, follow the instructions. That will be more important than sending it as a PDF. But if there aren't any instructions, I highly recommend the PDF version. That way you know that nothing gets messed up along the way in the sending process. Be aware of applicant tracking systems. So these are systems that often larger companies use, where they can select some words they want the software to look for. Maybe they want good communication or team player, things like that. So they would actually enter your resume into this system looking specifically for these words. This is why it's a good idea to take careful note of the terminology that is used on the job advertisement and the company website. So maybe even consider researching their values section. Keep in mind, a real person may not even be looking at your resume, so make sure it's basic and a computer could understand it if necessary. And make sure to keep a digital copy. You don't want to have to retype it. It's very time consuming to work on your resume. And last but not least, use resume building sites such as My Blueprint. As discussed in the previous sessions, My Blueprint is an online resource that all Nova Scotia students have access to. You can follow the link on the screen to take a closer look. There's not only resume building tools on there, but lots of other wonderful things as well. So I highly encourage you to take a look at that. Okay, so what's in a resume and what's not? Of course, as we mentioned, your name and contact information should be in on your resume. A profile summary or qualification section is often nice, kind of at the very beginning. Education, work experience, skills and or personal qualities, accomplishments, awards, volunteer experience. It's okay if you don't have something that fits within all of these categories. Just start off with what you do have. Okay, so what's not in a resume? Like we said earlier, an inappropriate email address. You also don't need to indicate your age, gender, or marital status. That is perfectly fine and should be left off of your resume. Of course, your SIN number should not be on your resume. Also, a photo or physical description of yourself, that's not required either. Something I see often is people indicating the reason why they left their last job. That's not necessary to put on. In fact, it's a bit too much information to give up to a prospective employer right off the bat. Salary expectations and your availability. So these two would be something that would be discussed potentially at an interview or after an interview if you've been offered the position. First person pronouns. So avoid things like I did this, my experience is. Keep it third person professional. And this last one might be confusing to some people, but we actually recommend now that references be not listed on your resume right away. And this is because, especially for youth, you're probably going to spend a lot of time applying for jobs and handing out resumes. You want to be courteous to your references, that you're not just handing their information out to as many people as possible. So what we often indicate is perhaps indicating at the bottom of your resume, references available upon request, or just leave it off. Employers know now that if they are interested in you, that they will ask you for your references. Your reference page would look very similar to your resume with your header of your name and contact information, and then your references listed. So it's just a separate document. So it's very common now. Employers won't think it's odd that you don't have your references listed. Of course, if they are specifically asking for references on the job posting, then by all means submit them right away. Okay, so here we have a sample youth resume. As you can see, there is a profile summary at the top reading, a motivated young person willing to learn on the job and work well in a team. Proven employability skills through athletics. Experience in collaboration and time management through high school responsibilities. Looking for first-time employment in a position that requires a dedicated and enthusiastic employee. There is then a skills and abilities section, followed by education, work experience, and then volunteer experience. As I have mentioned before, there are a lot of opinions about what makes a good resume, some of which are simply up to personal preference. However, there are some do's and don'ts you should follow and advise any youth you are assisting, many of which we have already discussed. Feel free to take a screenshot or picture of this resume if you choose to do so. As previously mentioned, I work for an organization called Nova Scotia Works. There are offices all over the province who help people find and maintain employment. If you have a youth or yourself who is interested in receiving assistance from one of our Nova Scotia Works staff, follow the link to find a center closest to you. It should also be noted that youth are able to be served who are within 3 months of graduation from high school or have impending plans to drop out of high school. So of course we don't hope that that's the case, but certainly know that there is assistance available to you or youth that you know if you are planning to drop out of that system. Okay, so that brings us to the end of this webinar series of Let's Talk Careers Filling Your Toolbox. If you have any questions about what was discussed today, please feel free to reach out to Let's Talk Careers at empsolutions.ca. All of the best in your exciting journey to career decision making. Whether you are a mentor, parent, or youth, you are all part of this important process for our future generations. Thank you for joining us.